we'll do our usual kind of keeping an eye on the attendees and asking people to introduce themselves in the chat as we need to, but I think we should just dive in. So welcome everybody to the December 11th, 2024 TAC meeting for the Salt Lake City area. Excited to be having our last meeting of the year and looking forward to the content we've got on today's agenda. So for today's meeting, I'm going to start things off with our introductions, and then we'll take care of some minutes approval, and then we'll get into the meat of our meeting. So yeah, I'm going to read off our agenda, or sorry, our attendance roll. And if you are here from one of those communities or organizations, if you would just unmute yourself and share your name so that we know you're here today, that would be great. And if I miss you, we'll make sure we come back at the end for anybody else. So do we have anybody here this morning from Alta? How about Bluffdale?
Yes, here.
Grant here from Bluffdale too.
Great, awesome. How about Brighton?
Yes, here. Morgan Julian.
And Morgan, while I have you here, are you also representing Copperton today?
Yes.
Okay. Just since those are that's the next consecutive community, I'll knock that one out. So we've got Morgan representing Brighton and Copperton today, and probably some others as we move through the alphabet. For Cottonwood Heights, I am here. My name's Samantha DeSeelhorst, and then it looks like we've got Mike Johnson, and oh man, I hope I don't miss any of my coworkers. I think that might be it for us today. How about Draper?
Taylor Draper.
Good morning.
Scott Cooley with Draper City.
Great.
Joe,
Okay, go
immigration.
ahead.
Joe Smolka with immigration.
Oh, great. You anticipated my next move. Thank you so much, Joe. Anybody else with Immigration Canyon City?
Morgan Julian.
Awesome. Thanks, Morgan. How about Harriman?
Clint Spencer with Harriman.
Great. Good morning. How about Holiday?
John Tierlink, Holiday.
And Jared Budge.
Great. Good morning, you guys. Let's go to Kearns.
Morgan Julian with Kearns.
Thanks, Morgan. And again, with the consecutive letter, are you also representing Magna today?
Yes, my coworkers might be on this call too, but I do not see them yet.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much for being here and representing so many great communities. How about Midvale?
Yeah, Wendelin Knobloch from Midvale.
Hey, Wendelin.
Hi.
Any other Midvale planners today?
Not right now, maybe later.
Okay, awesome. I know we've got at least one from Mill Creek. Oh, Francis, I see you're unmuted, but I actually can't hear you. So we'll come back to you. Let's give you a second to get connected there. And were there any other folks from Mill Creek today?
Can you hear me
How
now?
about Murray?
David Rogers, Murray City.
Great. And Francis, did I see that you tried again?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, awesome.
Okay. All right.
Yep, loud and clear. Thanks so much for troubleshooting that. Were there any other folks from Murray? Sorry to be jumping around a bit, but we got David. All right, let's do Riverton. It looks like we've got Nathan Page. He just mentioned his name in the chat. And that's a good reminder. If anybody is just now joining and I've already passed your community alphabetically, I will come back at the end, but you're also welcome to put your name and community or organization in the chat. All right, Salt Lake City.
Becca Rolfe, Salt Lake City Transportation. Joe Taylor as well.
Great, good morning. Let's go to Salt Lake County.
Hi, this is Ryan Anderson from Salt Lake County.
Jamie Dancy, hi. Just a little slow.
No, you're totally fine. I never know like how long to give it, so I also feel really badly if I've cut anybody off. I'm trying to read body language here. How about Sandy?
Brittany Ward with Sandy City.
Great, thanks, Brittany. And South Jordan. South Salt Lake City. Taylorsville. West Jordan.
Taylor Jensen with West Jordan.
Hey, Taylor. How about West Valley?
Jonathan Springmeyer from West Valley.
Hey, Jonathan, thanks for being here. Okay, White City.
Morgan Julian with White City.
Great. And then I'm gonna read some of our agencies and then additional groups, and then we'll come back and just make sure anyone who I missed gets covered. So do we have anybody today from UDOT? Okay, how about UTA?
Olivia Vaughn's UTA planning.
Go ahead.
Olivia Vaughn's. Yeah, sorry, Michelle.
Go ahead.
Yeah, UTA plan.
Michelle Larson, Government Relations, UTA.
Awesome, we're grateful to have both of you here. How about Federal Highways? Okay, and then I think Jory, you usually kind of introduce the WFRC batch, but however you want to do that is great.
Yeah, I'll run through. You'll hear from quite a few of us today, but Jory Johnner, Long Range Planning Group, Hugh Van Wagenen, Lauren Victor, Tim Escueda, Julie Bjornstead, also with Long Range Planning Group at WFRC. Then we have Megan Padgen, Tim Watkins, Matt Ryan, Marsha White, all with the Community Economic Development Group. Jordan Chandler, who you're getting our emails, calendar invites, any communication, and then our Executive Director, Andrew Gruber, is online also.
Great showing today from WFRC. Okay, do we have anybody from Jordan School District today? And I know we've got at least one from Envision Utah.
Hi, all. Good morning. Ryan Beck with Envision Utah.
Great, thanks for joining us, Ryan. How about WCG? Ike Utah? And then SOMIS. Okay, so we've run through the role. I see that Mike Malloy is here with Harriman City. He shared his name in the chat, so good morning, Mike. And then if I'll just open it up if anybody I missed you or you signed on and I'd already got to you, if you would like to unmute and introduce yourself, now is the time.
Addison Minton joining from Bluffdale City.
Welcome, thank you so much. Okay, great. So if you would like to add your name and organization or community to the chat, that's something you can continue to do. I do want to point out that Jordan has also linked our agenda in the chat. So thanks so much to Jordan for keeping us organized. You'll see on that agenda that our first and only action item of the day is approval of our September 11th, 2024 minutes. So that was our last meeting. It was kindly hosted by Sandy at their Public Works facility. And I will look for a motion for approval of those minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve Brittany Ward, Sandy City.
Wonderful. We have a motion by Brittany. And do we have a second?
I second Vandeline from Midvale City.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for saying your names as well. I know that helps with minutes. All right. So then now I'll ask all in favor of approval.
Aye.
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 It's always a little weird on Zoom meetings because I won't actually know if you didn't say aye. So I'll now ask, are there any opposed for approval? Okay, hearing none, the minutes, adoption of the minutes passes. So thanks for taking care of that housekeeping item. I'm now going to turn it over to Francis Lilly with Mill Creek City. Francis was willing to share a community highlight of what's going on in Mill Creek. So we're excited to hear from you, Francis. And yeah, we've got about 10 minutes to run through that and hopefully answer any questions that folks have.
All right, thank you. Good morning, everybody. Can everybody hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you now. Thanks.
Okay. I don't use Zoom that often, so I need to like figure out how to share a screen. How do I share a screen?
Should be at the bottom, with like kind of a green arrow at mine's at the bottom ribbon of
I see.
the screen. Does that show for you?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't have it fully loaded here.
Oh, you're totally fine. That happens to me every time I switch from Zoom to Teams. So you're in good company here. We can see your screen.
Good morning, everybody, and thank you. I've been happy to share a community highlight from Mill Creek. I'm sure some of you have seen versions of this presentation before, but it's still pretty exciting, at least for me. So I was the first planning director for Mill Creek, really essentially the first planner for Mill Creek as well. Hired on October 2017. I spent the first week kind of trying to figure out where I could get a computer and a stapler and a telephone, and we hit the ground running immediately after that, building a new city, a new urban place out of an old community, and that's the story of the last 7 years. So for those of you who don't know, Mill Creek is interesting in that it extends from the Jordan River to the Forest Service land on Grandeur Peak and Mount Olympus. And in between, we have everything, right? From limited light industrial to what was maybe until 5 or 6 years ago, a good stock of affordable housing, to a very high-end housing, to aging commercial, a hospital, a headquarters of a regional online university, and a lot of other kind of commercial and multifamily residential sprinkled within. We're about 13 square miles and about 63,000 people. Most of the city was built out between 1930 and about 1975 or so. Yeah, it's a fascinating place to work. In the last 7 years, here's kind of what Mill Creek's accomplished. We started off with we started off immediately with doing a general plan, followed thereafter by a city center master plan, and we are a transportation master plan, corridor studies for 33rd South and Highland Drive, a form-based code, and now we're doing a sidewalk and trails master plan. On this slide, you'll notice that some of the items are highlighted in yellow. Those items were actually funded through the Wasatch Front Regional Council's Transportation Land Use Connection grant program. And I want to credit that program for levering the city's limited resources, not just in terms of money, but in terms of time, to give ourselves added capacity to jumpstart some of these initiatives that the cities needed to do. And Wasatch Front has been an exceptionally good partner in all of these projects over the past several years. We also bagged a Porsche dealership, which is pretty exciting news. And finally came up with a good development plan for a village center, limited multifamily, office, restaurants, all at a small scale, adjacent to this dealership between I-215 and Wasatch Boulevard. It's a pretty exciting project that nonetheless got a lot of public engagement and involvement, that occupied a significant amount of our time in the last year and a half, but everybody is mostly happy about it, actually, and when we're pretty proud and excited to see this project come together. We are continuing to do some floodplain adjustments. I'm going to skip back to the map here. On the right side of the map, in the Olympus Cove area, significant portion of that area is actually encumbered by a FEMA floodplain. It's an old alluvial fan. So a significant aspect of our work has been to work with FEMA and the Forest Service to build a debris flow basin to relieve the pressure on the various kind of insurance problems and buildability problems that are associated with the floodplain. We can't even move a fire station, right, because of this floodplain. And this fire station is literally falling apart on us, and it is impossible to repair. And so we have been working with the federal government to get that floodplain adjusted, and I anticipate that'll be done in the next couple of years. We did a Meadowbrook area master plan in partnership with Murray just earlier this year. And now we are working on a comprehensive zoning and subdivision code update, where we took what we inherited, which was a county zoning code, which was great, but it got a little long in the tooth, and it was written not just for Mill Creek, but for the entire county. And so there were some really interesting legal mechanisms that separated Mill Creek apart from Salt Lake County in the code that just became very complicated when it became ours and ours alone. So we started from the very beginning, and revised zone district names, zone standards. We expanded our form-based code concept into some of our other mixed-use zones through this update. We simplified and clarified application procedures. It's been an exhausting and exciting project at the same time. By the way, we built a new city hall. We did a temporary homeless shelter in 2022. We worked with the state and a service provider to provide permanent supportive housing for 40 women who would otherwise be homeless. We have entitled over 3,000 new dwelling units, including 400 new LIHTC units, or deed restricted somehow. We've been working on a program called Mill Creek Promise, where we are trying to align civic and community resources, including police, education, charitable resources, toward commonly understood goals related to housing, education, and job creation. We have set aside $1.4 million for affordable housing initiatives over the last few years, and we're looking for ways to spend that money here soon. We've also acquired open space along the Jordan River and Grand Peak in collaboration and in partnership with Salt Lake County. Finally, we have reimagined our parks and recreation, the concept of parks and recreation in Mill Creek, around skating, both ice and roller skating, climbing, cultural events, and informal play. We're in the process we're right now constructing a parking structure that we're sharing with an adjacent developer. We have determined the cost of that parking structure, as well as operation and maintenance, based on a shared parking analysis that we did pursuant to our code. We are incubating local businesses, and we created a successful public market on the ground floor of City Hall. And we are almost at the stage of designating the first real mid-century modern neighborhood as a national register, as a national historic district in the National Register of Historic Places. And that should be done in January. So that's pretty exciting. But I think what's probably most exciting is Mill Creek Common and the center that we are working on. Again, this is an end product of years of work with and years of support from the Wasatch Front Regional Council, and we're particularly excited about this one. Mill Creek Common came about because there was a fault line that ran through aging commercial development, and all the property owners and all the developers were interested in doing something. They were seeing evidence of economic spillover from Sugar House, and they wanted to capture the opportunity in 2017 and 2018, but the fault line was in the way. They needed all manner of variances, and the plan, the initial concepts weren't great in the sense that you had no one was coordinating their efforts. You had kind of disjointed designs. I mean, some people wanted to do garden style walk-ups, some people wanted to do 80-foot tall buildings, and we got everybody together and came up with a plan to anchor a public space around the fault line where you couldn't build anyway. And eventually that space grew pretty significantly. On the left was the master plan image that showed a 4.2 acre space, but now it's over 5 acres. And everything that all the tax incentive that we generated to support the development in this area has gone toward the public space, and not a penny of it has actually gone to the developers themselves. I like to show this graph or this image. What the world sees when we implement a city center is something pretty busy but relatively simple, right? You identify properties and you put buildings on these properties and you tie them together with a great open space. But what we see is a complicated, braided series of decisions and collaborative efforts between multiple jurisdictions that has touched on everything that we can do as a planner, except for disconnection, right? We even had an attempted referendum over it. We moved a billboard. We adjusted a municipal boundary with Salt Lake City. We bought land. We sold land. We dealt with irrigation companies. We abandoned rights of way. We built new rights of way. We renamed streets. We did everything. And it's been really exciting, and I never want to do it again. One of the things that we've done as a planner to kind of help, as planners to help communicate this story is at every milestone, like whenever there's like a major approval or new development entitlement or a certificate of occupancy issued, we send this chart out to everybody. And this just gives everybody a sense of how the project is coming along, what is done, what is on its way. And we also take a look at what type of commercial real estate has been lost or transformed in this process. And what we're finding is that we're not necessarily adding the numbers of units that we thought we would. And we're also adding more commercial space than we had from the get-go. And I only share this because this type of information is really important to help you communicate change, right? And your change may be something on the scale of grandeur, on the scale of Mill Creek Common, but it may not be. But in any case, it's really useful to have a good source of data at hand that you can share to people when needed. So the real kind of crown jewel of Mill Creek Common is our skate loop, which features ice skating and roller skating. We also, adjacent to Mill Creek Common is our City Hall. And the City Hall actually has become a great place for public events. We've given over the ground floor of City Hall to a public marketplace that has been very successful. And little things like musicians have discovered that they like the place, so they now come and hang out, which is not something we necessarily planned for, but is part of the kismet of kind of building a great public space. This image this image shows another thing that we did was we combined the model of future development. We combined a rendering of Mill Creek Common with the actual renderings of buildings that have been planned or entitled, right? And it was a little expensive to get the architects to do this, but nonetheless, it's been really helpful to manage expectations and to communicate to the world what this thing is actually going to look like. We're beginning to work on Mill Creek Common Phase 2, which is north of Woodland Avenue, north of the skating loop. It veers off to the north northwest there. We did recently get a grant from the state of Utah and Salt Lake County. Thank you, to start construction of Phase 2, which will consist of mini golf, skate park, a large playground and green space to complement the hardscape of phase one. And there's kind of a summary graphic of that. I want to leave you with this idea that one of the things that I've learned is that as planners, I think sometimes we think that if we just build a great space, you know, they will come, right? But planning is not like the Field of Dreams at all. You can build great places and nothing happens, and we've actually seen that. But really, placemaking is a function of programming and creative use of the space, and that's why the Mill Creek City Council decided to put City Hall at the center of this space, because we recognize that the civic functions of City Hall and the community building functions of City Hall really needed to become the anchor of this place to make it function. And so we created a whole new department in our city government whose job is to curate events at the space and manage the skating, climbing, and soon to be mini golf opportunities to just create great opportunities for play. And just here are some photos of what life is like on Mill Creek Common. We are extremely, extremely excited and proud of it. And I'm just going to leave you with this.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Francis. Exciting to see some detail on projects that I knew were happening, but didn't exactly know how they were happening. So I appreciate that overview. Let's open it up. Does anybody have questions for Francis?
So you've been a little bored in the last 7 years?
Yeah, bored is not the word for it. You know, there was a line in The Simpsons where, you know, after they had like a great and exciting day, I think it was either Homer or Marge that said, now never let us speak of this again. And it is exciting. It's not something I ever want to do again, but what a privilege it's been to work on these projects and help build a new city. It has been very exciting.
That's just phenomenal, and congratulations. That's all I have to say.
Thank
I
you.
would also love if you can share your presentation. Thank you.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, I'm sure we can send that out in the kind of recap email. I thought I maybe heard someone else unmute. Were there other questions for Francis?
No question, just was gonna say, great presentation, Francis, and I think you have Mill Creek's finest resident in this meeting who always glows when he talks about Mill Creek and what you guys have done. So Andrew's always excited.
Good. I'm glad.
Great.
We're excited too.
Well, thank you so much, Francis, for sharing that. We'll be sure we send out the presentation for those who want to be inspired by the imagery and maybe look at some of the finer grain details. And I would just say, if you haven't had a chance to go skate at the Commons, now's a great time of year to go out and check it out and enjoy some activity amid the colder temps. So appreciate you being here today. Let's go ahead and move on to item 3 on our agenda. That's going to be led by Tim Watkins, and it's going to be a discussion on our Wasatch Choice Vision follow-up. Oh, and it looks like you're muted, Tim. I'm seeing your screen, but I'm not hearing you yet.
Thank you. Pushed every button except for the unmute. So
here we go. Don't worry.
Thank you. So hello to everyone, and good to be with you. And today I'll be providing an overview of how we're processing the feedback that we received from many of you that I see in this meeting attended the October, November, fall workshops, where we focused on the future of our region. And so here's an action shot from the Southeast Salt Lake County workshop held at Mill Creek in November. And the workshops totaled to eight area workshops across the region, the MPO region, from Brigham City in Box Elder County to the north and Bluffdale in Salt Lake County to the south. Here's a zoom in of the Northern Davis County area workshop map. And you can see the 2023 Wasatch Choice land uses, particularly the centers jump out in the brighter colors. You also see employment centers, industrial employment districts, industrial districts as some of those land uses. You also see the existing regional transportation plan on the map and a draft of the Beehive Bikeways, regionally significant pathways and trails and active transportation. And there were two main workshop tasks. And these included to review and affirm or update land use and transportation. Today, our focus will be on the feedback we received on the Wasatch Choice centers and land uses. And it's important to note that as we've been digitizing and taking all of the feedback received on land use, the same is being done with the transportation feedback. Our long-range transportation planning team is evaluating and gathering that feedback concurrently, and they'll be reaching out in one-on-ones to coordinate that as they compare it with the land use and take future steps to prepare for our fall workshops next year. So the Wasatch Choice Vision is updated every 4 years, as is the Regional Transportation Plan. And so here's a view of the land use map, the vision map, and we're in the process of a 2024 to 2027 update. I should say this is the 2023 Wasatch Choice Vision map, and we're in the process of working towards an update to 2027. And here is the land use along with the transportation of the 2023 vision, Wasatch Choice Vision. Again, we're in the process of working towards an update. And so just to give you a bit of a timeline of where we've been, where we're at, and where we're headed, you can see we just got through on the left side, some of you may have attended the Menu of Centers webinar. I'll show some images from that webinar focused on centers and the ingredients of successful centers. And then we just went through our fall workshops to the end of November 2024. And then what we'd like to do today is ask for your feedback on a web app that we would like to have you help us refine the land uses for the Wasatch Choice Vision update. So that will be an exercise that will reach out to you and invite you as city planners to comment and help us refine the land use map in a draft form, such that it could then be ready to take out to your cities and share it with those who participated in the workshops. You could take that final land use draft to your city council, your planning commission, could be reviewed in a work meeting, such that by spring of 2025, we have a final land use updated land use vision and Wasatch Choice Vision map. And that will be used to analyze by our analytics group, looking at the real estate market model and the travel demand model, looking at preliminary household and jobs forecasts, preparatory to fall of 2025, when the preferred transportation scenario will be presented and reviewed for feedback in that series of workshops. All right, so here's just a view of the 2023 Regional Transportation Plan. It forecasts out to the year 2050. And in our current update effort between 2024 and 2027, we're looking to the year 2020 or 2055 for the RTP update. So just a recap of some of the important land use details that we covered in the workshops and that we'd like you to keep in mind as we review land use and centers, that centers are a key component of the land use component of the Wasatch Choice Vision. There are neighborhood centers, city centers with a little more intensity, urban centers and metro centers being of the greatest intensity. But there are many other land uses that are important to consider regionally, and these include the employment districts, industrial districts, residential areas, parks, public spaces. And all of these have significance and importance, but centers in particular have special impacts and really impact the way we have choices to get around, to choose between vehicle, transit, or bike or ped travel. And one of the things we learned in this round of workshops is that a new land use type had been identified as we've been listening to different communities and their feedback, and found that in addition to centers and the districts that I've just mentioned, a retail district use is significant and needs to be identified on the maps, or has been identified on the maps. And that's one of the details that we'd be asking for in January, is for each of you cities to identify retail areas that are likely to remain retail and are not likely to change and evolve perhaps into a mixed use center. So just a reminder and overview of the components or the ingredients of a center. They're walkable, well-connected, good pedestrian access, as well as other modes of transportation. They have a mix of uses, including residential mix of use with retail and other uses, and they are more intense than their surrounding area. And so these are some of the images from the menu of centers. We'll be releasing this information soon. Graphics useful for discussions, land use, and centers discussions in your communities. This image depicting a neighborhood center at perhaps the lower intensity scale of 1 to 3 stories, might be served by standard bus. Here's an image of a city center, a little more intensity, perhaps up to 4 stories, perhaps served by enhanced bus. This is a depiction of an urban center, 2 to 8 stories, might be served by bus rapid transit or rail transit. And the menu of centers will also feature existing conditions that might be right for redevelopment or infill development, such as this depiction of aging commercial development that might evolve into this urban center. And this is really reminds me of the Mill Creek presentation that we just saw. It certainly takes a lot of effort to focus on centers and work with different private sector and stakeholders and public sector stakeholders to help these things happen. And that requires a significant focus for implementation. So what we'd like to do now is look at a new tool that's been developed, and we're going to present it to you and share it with you in its draft form today. And we'll be asking you to test it a little bit. So we'll take a few minutes, and I'll be sharing in the chat here in just a moment the link to this app. So we really appreciate the support from our analytics team. And this land use update mapping app, as I'll call it now, created by Sarah Lawless, one of our data scientists. And you'll note on the left side of the map, you'll see current centers from 2023, Wasatch Choice Vision. On the right, you'll see proposed centers. And so you see a difference that I've shown. I'm depicting the city of Layton here. And you see the difference on the right being that this reflects the recent input that was provided at the fall workshop. And we've done our best, WFRC, to take the comments, the stickers, the areas around the stickers, and digitize those into this app. And we've done that across the region. And we certainly have done our best to interpret what was written on the maps, to compare to adopted plans. We've also looked at aerial imagery and done our best, but we understand that it's probably going to need more refinement and need your knowledge of your own community to help us refine this. And so we've created some tools that you see highlighted on the right, and I'll show and demonstrate the app in just a moment, but you're able to zoom just specifically to your city. And then you can go in and select on a polygon and gather some of the information and see what type of land use it is. And then if you'd like to propose changes to that or refine the area, that you have either a pin comment tool or a polygon comment tool. So I will now demonstrate how those work.
Tim, while you're pulling that up, do you mind if I make a comment?
Please do.
So those of you who've been around through one or two cycles of the vision may notice that the vision's getting more specific, right? We want it to be increasing in accuracy every time we do this. And we know that over the 4-year period of a vision, your plans get more specific. And we want to reflect that and have it be, you know, an accurate representation of your plans. That's really where the retail district came from. You know, year over year, we talk about centers, and there's these important places in some of your communities that are really sole use. They have retail uses. Now, some of those have a different intended future. And if the intended future of those retail areas is to be more of a walkable mixed use center, we want you to keep it that way. However, if there's a retail district in your city, you know, with some of the big chain anchor tenants, it's not necessarily walkable, but it is regionally significant, and there is not an intended change. That's not intended to become walkable. It's not intended to have a new mix of uses over time, even if that's far in the future. We do want to reflect that is what it is. It's a retail district, and its future is not a walkable center. So anyway, please ask us questions about that. If there's something identified in your community, it's because we heard something in the workshops. We certainly are not pushing you to turn your centers into retail districts. We just want to accurately reflect your plans. So anyway, that's just my 2 cents there.
Thank you, Meg. And as you've been speaking, I've just been zooming around to different places throughout our region in this mapping app. I've just zoomed into Brigham City. You can see on the left the 2023 current land use in the Wasatch Choice Vision. And then you see some proposed changes and some questions. And so this is our attempt to capture what was provided at the workshop on the, you know, various types of comments on the workshop map. What I'd like to do now is zoom in to a table that I was took part in the discussion as a facilitator anyway. And it's a great discussion. And so on the left, you see the current land use. On the right, you see some proposed changes. And these include some areas some modifications to existing centers, creation of new centers. And let's say, for example, that I just wanted to ID and see what a particular note was or type of land use, that I can click the select tool, select one of the land uses, and see that this is Weber State University. Davis campus is an educational center. I can click on this land use and see that it's the Layton Midtown Urban Center. You'll note a difference here along this Main Street corridor. And this is reflective of the feedback we received that there is an overlay and a mixed use overlay along Main Street. So we would look to Layton City to help us refine the boundaries of that. So let me show you some of the tools that are available that you as city planners would be able to help us improve the accuracy of this draft land use update. So here is a comment tool for just a pinpoint, and I could click at a specific point, or if I just wanted to change or propose to change the land use designation, but not necessarily the boundary of the city center, then I could click on it and I could propose to change it from its current city center to, let's say, an urban center. And I would just type in that note, please change. I might describe it a little bit. And then I would just identify myself. And we just want to make sure we could get a hold of you. Don't know that you need to provide your email every comment, but we just want to know who to get a hold of if there's any discussion or clarification needed. And so what we'd invite you to do is open this app up and just practice making a few pinpoint comments. But first, I'd also like to show or demonstrate how to create a polygon comment. And there are several choices in creating a polygon comment. Let's say, for example, this center was drawn too large and I wanted to carve out a piece that really should not be part of that center. Then I could go in, draw the area to be removed, like so, and then choose from the land use change menu of options to remove that land use area. I could also select other and type a specific set of instructions, or I could propose to designate it as another use, such as retail district or special district. So quite a few tools at your disposal there and options. I'll just say remove land use area. Type in a note and my contact information.
Tim,
So we've tried. Yes, please go ahead.
question, I guess, maybe for, the link was put into the chat. I'm wondering if anybody has opened that, if they're looking at this, and if they have any questions for you on how to navigate the tool, or since Bert, Sarah, Josh are here, maybe they can help answer on a more technical component too.
I did open the link, and unfortunately it's not providing me access. It wants me to sign in to ArcGIS Online, and obviously my Cottonwood Heights credentials are like not cleared. So I wonder if it just isn't maybe like set to the public side yet, but it's not letting me it's letting me view the current centers, but telling me that the data I don't have access to on proposed centers.
Tim, you're also sharing your Google chat screen.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, apologies. This is Sarah. I will fix that right this minute.
I am so amazed by this tool, Sarah. Huge kudos to you and the rest of the analytics team for developing this. I think anyone who works in GIS is actually a wizard, because the way you can create these modules to give feedback is very cool. So way to go. That's exciting.
Thank you very much. So I think we'll have the correct link for you. That could have been me posting the wrong link in the chat, but we'll have that momentarily.
I did want to, while we get that pulled up, ask a question, if that's okay, Tim.
Please.
So I noticed in my own community, sometimes when we talk about making these changes on the map, there's like some apprehension or some fear, I think, of like, oh, but we're not totally sure, and like a little bit afraid to just put it on the map. So what would you recommend? Let's say a community is reviewing their proposed centers and they're like, yeah, we think this is correct for now, and then a year down the road something changes. Is there some reassurance, I guess, that like this can continue to be updated between the overall big update efforts? That maybe will help people kind of feel comfortable putting stuff out there.
Meg, would you like to respond to that?
I'm happy to. Yes, of course. This is intended to be a live reflection of your city's vision. Now, of course, this goes beyond your general plans. So if there's at least a willingness and agreement to explore a center that isn't in your general plan, that isn't adopted by your city, so it's great to have it on there, right? We want to have your vision to 2025 or 2055, right? It's intended to be very long-term. But if your city makes changes to those plans, wants to add a center, any of that, it's a very simple amendment. It's an amendment level 1. We don't have, our Wasatch Front Regional Council does not vote on your land use change in the vision, right? So you can always submit changes to us. Those are processed by staff, agreed upon by council leadership, just to include it in the vision, and we can make changes anytime. The big push right now is to get a close to accurate, a 99% accurate layer of the land use in the vision in order to do our household and jobs forecasting to process the transportation proposals. So anyway, there's a little bit of a process right now, but you can change these anytime.
Okay, that's very helpful. And it does look like, but based on chat feedback and me just testing it again, it looks like we're good, we're in. So We've got just a couple of minutes until we need to move on to the RTP discussion. But Tim, I'll defer to you on kind of what you want to do with those last couple of minutes. If you want to take questions or you want to have feedback, we've got about until 9:55.
Sure. I think what would be helpful for us is if each of you could maybe just in the next minute or later today or tomorrow, just practice speaking a few comments, whether they be polygons or points, and just email me any feedback. I'll just chat my email here. And we just like to know if it's pretty intuitive, if there's any features that you think could be improved, make it more user-friendly. And then we'll refine it. And then you could anticipate receiving from us an email with possibly an instructional video or some detailed instructions, some of the technical steps that might be needed for using the tool. And then we'd just like to invite you during the month of January to refine the land use areas. And there could also be some back and forth, or we'd be happy to come visit you in person or set up a web meeting to talk through some of the nuances and the interpretive challenges and opportunities that come with that task.
Tim, the instructions on how to leave a comment might be helpful if we type something up and send it out with the follow-up that Jordan sends out after. Seemed like there was quite a few different options to leave either boundary feedback or other types. And so if we could just do a quick little step-by-step, we could include that with the follow-up email.
Sure. And it would be fairly basic, as we're really just like to see how user-friendly and intuitive it is to use, and where we would actually focus our specific instructions once we send the follow-up email out. So
I believe Tim said this as well, but this will come out to each city in an email to a particular staff lead in the planning area. So this isn't your only shot at this link. No need to copy paste. We'll certainly get it to you, but we sort of wanted to utilize this captive audience moment to get everybody in there right now.
Yep.
Awesome. Well, I'm just gonna say we've got a quick minute here. Did anybody have a burning question that they wanted to run past Tim before we swap over to the transportation side of things?
I've got a quick question, and maybe it's the dumb one, but just looking at, so this is Clint Spencer with Harriman City. I was just looking at our map area, and there's a couple of question marks on the map. Is that something that we need to do something with or address, or what are those for?
Oh, I do appreciate that question. As I forgot to mention that those are questions that we didn't necessarily feel comfortable interpreting how to draw the land use. And so we put a question mark instead to raise as a discussion point, or maybe a comment for you to address and clarifying what the vision is for the land use.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Be able to click on those and see more information, like a written question. And then also, question mark or not, everything's up for your reaction, response, edits, everything. So to get extra look at the questions, but please look at everything within your city boundary.
Yeah.
Great. Thanks so much, Tim, for that exciting update. And again, thank you to the analytics team for developing that tool. I'm guessing we're turning it over to Julie. I see Julie, her beautiful face on screen and her unmute go. So Julie, can I turn it over to you for the RTP discussion?
Yep. Okay, so Tim was discussing our fall workshops that we just had. And at that workshop, we had asked you about your transportation needs, your aspirations, and you guys might be wondering what we're doing with that information now. So we take all of those projects on the 2023 RTP, what we heard from you at the workshops, what we've heard through one-on-one stakeholder meetings and other comments that we're getting from the public, and evaluate them through a set of criteria to determine whether they should belong on the regional transportation plan. And today we'll walk through that process. We'll show you that criteria that we're using, and we'll ask you for your feedback, both here in conversation format and then also in concept board written comments. So I'm going to share with you in the chat the concept board, and I'll also share my screen 1 second. So that we can follow along. So this is the concept board that we'll be getting, reviewing with you today, as well as getting feedback from you on. And I'll start up here at the top with this exploring regional transportation concepts. So you'll see, we start with this idea of gathering these concepts for consideration. And I just mentioned a few of the ways that we gather that information. This year, we're doing something slightly different, and that is that we are trying to enhance the consideration of what we're calling exploratory transportation concepts. These concepts can be something that either need a little bit more detailed study or review, or more coordination with you as communities, with our transportation partners. Maybe it's an idea that came from the public and we're not quite sure if the city is bought into it yet. It could be an aspirational project, something that we want to strive for, but would need something to help support that. And that something could be something like a significant increase in development to be successful, right? Whether that's more ridership. So this is the process that we are proposing to use. So we'll take all of those concepts we heard, we'll put them through a preliminary screening. And this preliminary screening will, when I'm done going through this process, we'll walk through mode by mode. If a project does not pass that preliminary screening, it's the idea just doesn't make sense for what our development is today, what we're planning for the future. It's maybe has a huge environmental impact. Then we're not moving that concept forward for consideration into the RTP. If the project sort of passes that preliminary screening, then we would, here I'll zoom in a little bit, consider that concept for the vision. And all of those projects would then go through a technical evaluation. And that technical evaluation is similar to what we've done in years past. So if you've been here for one or more plans, you should be slightly familiar with it. And again, we'll talk about that technical evaluation for each mode in a second. If the project goes through that technical evaluation and for some reason it doesn't meet those needs, whether ridership is too low, volume thresholds are too low, there's not enough buy-in, those are then going over to what we're calling these exploratory concepts. And these concepts, we're identifying them, we'll be displaying them, but they won't be necessarily endorsed. And we can in the future reconsider whether those should be included into the RTP. If they, for instance, had further study, there was notable land use changes, there were additional funding sources, the communities coming together, there's technological advancements, right? There's lots of different reasons why we might consider those projects again, but something would need to change on them. For projects that meet that technical evaluation, we're saying that these projects have the ridership that's needed, they're opening a new transit market, they're a safety reason or what have you, then those would go down, be included in the regional transportation plan, and then go through next steps of getting phased. And we will come back to you with these phasing criteria. But right now we're focusing on getting your feedback on this top part, these preliminary screening that we're using, and then the technical evaluation. So on this concept board, as we walk through, you'll see down here, there's these little notes, and you can like drag one up, start typing in it. Or if you want to talk about something specific, you can come up here to this comment, click where you want to add a comment, and then you can type it in. So now we're going to go through each one of the modes and walk through that preliminary screening and that technical evaluation. Jory.
I just wanted to make sure I'm looking at the, you can see in the top right of Julie's screen who's in the concept board. So I don't see 42 people in there. And so I'm just curious, are people having troubles getting in, or if they have questions about getting in? If you're not able to get in, we're going to have to Hugh, Lauren, Che, zoom in really close because the text is small and kind of scroll down.
And on this one, it looks like it does prompt you to just join as a guest, right? So you don't have
Correct,
to
yeah.
sign in or anything. It shouldn't need any credentials or an account with Concept Board. So if that's holding you back, you can just join as a guest and type your name, I think. Jory successfully guilted more people into joining. I see some more attendees on the board. So way to go, Jory.
Only prompted because we want your input and feedback, and as Julie just showed you how to grab those sticky notes, it'll be important we hear from you and get your feedback right now. So.
Okay, Hugh.
Julie, hand it to me. Okay, thank you. So I'm just going to zoom in to the active transportation portion of this process. To talk about the preliminary screening here. And as we talked about active transportation, one of the things we're really trying to consider this round of the regional transportation plan is being a little bit more, what's the word I'm looking for? Decisive on what is a regionally significant project versus a non-regionally significant project. And so that's a lot of the criteria that we'll see in this preliminary screening, is just trying to screen those out a little bit more than we currently have. There, in the 2023 Regional Transportation Plan, there are 831 projects on the active transportation side of things. And it just sort of dilutes the significance of certain projects when we have that many in. So really curious on your feedback on whether or not we should look to filter more projects out because of the 831 across the plan, or if we should continue to be very inclusive, which is what we have done, with this younger mode and an immature network. But as we've gone through and looked at this preliminary screening and trying to consider local versus regional, we're going to look at screening projects that are in local plans and the current RTP. What do we do with new project ideas that have been coming out of the workshops and other stakeholder meetings? And what about ones coming out of a regional study? So one thing that has to happen with this preliminary screening is, does the project expand access? So it must meet one of these following criteria. If it doesn't cross city boundaries, so it's just within one city, does it connect at least 3 neighborhoods or zones within that city? Point projects are a little bit different. Or does the project connect 2 or more cities? And does the project part of a regional active transportation corridor that either does one of the above, so connects 3 neighborhoods or zones, connects 2 or more cities by filling a gap or completing an identified route? Or does it create a connection between 2 regional projects? Well, I won't go through all of this in super detail just to make sure we're okay on time. And before I just move down here to facility type, I will say, some of you might be less interested in this, and that's just fine, right? It's our job to kind of create these criteria. But if you sort of are thinking, I don't trust Hugh as far as I can throw him, please dive in here and make sure, you take a look and let us know how this stuff can be improved. Facility types, we have a bunch of different facility types called out in the plan as well. And again, trying to streamline and consolidate a little bit to make sure we're not just stuck in too many weeds, because this is the regional transportation plan. Really just want to focus on bike lanes and buffered bike lanes, those separated facilities like a separated bike lane / cycle track / shared use path / side path. Neighborhood byways we have in the plan, or bicycle boulevards. Really feel probably most of those are local, but if they're part of a longer route or a beehive bikeways, they could be included. Really the only soft surface trail we've included in the past is the Bonneville Shoreline Trail because of its huge regional significance. So probably still leaning that direction. And then these point projects, so intersection projects or bridges, tunnels, things that cross a major barrier, certainly want to include. in the plan where appropriate. If it's coming from, so that was current plans, current RTP. If it's a new project idea, we want to make sure it meets that expand access and facility type above, and also has some sort of concept that's in development, or maybe it has funding, or maybe it's something that has a name, an identity, or logo, right? So it has a little bit of momentum with it. We'd be looking to screen them that way. If it's part of a regional study like the Beyond Bikeways, Utah Trail Network, or other environmental study or something like that, we definitely want to take a look at it. Again, make sure it's meeting that access and facility type above. So if there are specific comments about the preliminary screening for active transportation, happy to take them now. And of course, it won't be your only opportunity to give us feedback on that. Seeing none, I'll move on to the technical criteria. So again, so those projects, if they don't meet that first screening, they'll just, be put into this other bucket of projects that didn't get through that criteria. And now anything in this technical criteria will be deciding if it should go and be a part of the regional transportation plan or be put into the, exploratory project bucket, right? So projects that are in a holding pattern, so to speak. So some things, again, in the BI Bikeways or Utah Trail Network, and as some reasonable feasibility regarding cost of and right-of-way, we have to sort of define that a little bit more, and some of that might just be sort of a smell test on feasibility. But we certainly know some things might come out of those two processes, BI Bikeways and Utah Trail Network, that really are aspirational and probably aren't right for the current RTP, but more exploratory. If project overcomes a major barrier, like a point project, like interstates, waterways, railroads, etc. And again, that feasibility sniff test is applied. Want to include it in the plan for 2055. We do have a bike model that's relatively young. Again, analytics team doing a lot of great work on that. And so there's some, we're looking at some demand considerations and want to come up with some sort of number that says, hey, if this project goes in, it's going to create this number of new bike trips or attract this many bike trips. And we'd like to be able to use that model to speak to that. Don't know what that threshold quite is yet. But if you're all okay with that, we'll keep exploring that and find a good one to use. And then, if there's a regional destination that's not currently served, make sure that is looked at. And then this is must meet all criteria below. So it has community support, so your city support or county support. If there's an adjacent agency that owns land or is in their right of way, like UTA or UDOT, want to make sure they're supportive. Minimal impacts to sensitive lands. And if there's another large landowner that needs to have some buy-in for the project, want to make sure they're on board. And, perhaps they're not, or they haven't quite come around. Again, well, we can put it in that exploratory bucket and, sit it in a holding pattern for future consideration. So that's everything regarding whether or not it should continue in the RTP process or be put into that bucket of the exploratory projects. Again, if you are okay with this direction or if you have concerns otherwise, please let us know, leave a comment. But if there's nothing more, I'll stop and hand it over to, it's going Che or Lauren, I'm not sure.
Over to me, but I'll just
All right.
give a second if there's questions.
Thanks, Lauren.
Hey, thanks, Hugh. Okay, so we'll scoot over to the transit. That's going to be on the far right of the board. So just looking at that, we'll start with the preliminary screening that Hugh and Julie have talked about. So on the transit side, we're looking at it. Is this project advancing shared goals? So just to begin, when we get a concept, is this project going to advance our Wasatch Choice vision goals, our U vision, and our guiding our growth goals? Then we'll be looking at the community and transportation partner support. So is there buy-in from the communities and transportation partners, the communities where the project is, is it kind of agreed upon that this concept should be explored? And then we'll go into the meaningful planning analysis with both of these needing to be met. So the project has been previously conceptually reviewed, so some sort of analysis has been conducted, or the project has undergone some form of a study. Then we'll look down at the viability. So there's the financial reasonability if a project serves other important goals, for example, the economic development, opening new markets, and or centers vitality. And then we also have meets a need for future growth assumptions. So looking on to E, community and environmental impact. So all of these need to be met. So does this concept and project, does it have significant impact to or loss of homes and or businesses? We probably don't want to be looking at those. So then moving on, it does not have significant environmental impacts as well. So that's a big consideration when we're reviewing these initial concepts. And then it has a reasonable system. So the cost of the project does not outweigh the benefits. So that's just a quick snippet of the transit preliminary screening. Are there any questions or comments on that? None? Okay, so now we'll move on to that technical.
Sorry, I have a question.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry, I was finding my mute button.
Yeah.
The question I have is, having been previously conceptually reviewed, does the inclusion in a master plan meet that, or is there more that needs to be done?
Yeah, I think that could definitely, yes, that would meet it.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions? Sorry, I can't see everyone, so I can't look at body language to see if anyone's talking, or we're going to unmute. So just interrupt me. Thanks, Becca. So then, yeah, moving on to the technical evaluation. So once we've gone through that preliminary screening, then as mentioned before, this will look to see if it gets into that kind of exploratory list or if it goes into the regional transportation plan. So looking at the beginning, we'll run the projects through our travel demand model.
One of those
with our-
countless interruptions that you get at that.
Oh, sorry. We'll run the projects through our travel demand model with our real estate market model and look at the established, if the project meets the established ridership thresholds. And so those are all down here. So in order for a project to kind of hit a certain mode or be a certain mode, we have these daily boardings per mile thresholds that we've worked with UTA to kind of update in the last plan. And then so we'll also look at parallel or adjacent projects review, making sure that both projects meet the threshold. If not, we'll be reviewing data centers and we'll coordinate with local communities and UTA on that. And then again, it's repetitive, but we still want to, ensure that there's buy-in from local communities and transportation partners through the technical process. And then the last thing we're looking at for this is the access to economic and educational opportunities. So do these projects improve our access to opportunities, or ATO? Does the ATO increase with equity focus areas as well? And then we're looking at if the project expands transit service areas that are underserved by transit. So that is the technical evaluation for the transit projects. Any questions on that or comments? Okay, hearing none. I pass it over to Jay.
Alrighty. So for the roadway section, it'll be a bit similar in some regard to the transit section for the preliminary screening. So on the roadway side, we also have the advances shared goals with the Wasatch Choice Vision, U Vision, and guiding our growth. There's also the community and transportation partner support. So just making sure that it has buy-in from communities and our transportation partners. And then for the meaningful planning and analysis of concept, that the concept has been reviewed at some point, basically making sure that it's undergone some form of study, or the project is already in a transportation master plan. For viability, all of these need to be met. So the project does not hinder development intensity assumptions in centers. It enhances employment and industrial centers via better roadway connectivity. The project meets a need for future growth assumptions. The project has an identifiable problem it solves, and the project meets professional judgment. Community environmental impact, all these need to be met as well. So it does not have a significant impact to or loss of homes, businesses, or public spaces. It does not have significant environmental impact, and it does not create a connectivity barrier. The reasonable system and cost benefit. The cost of the project does not outweigh the benefits. For network improvement, one of these need to be met. So it could be creates new connections, relieves arterial congestion, improves reliability, or enhances system-to-system access. And then for the WFRC area, regionally significant roadway. So that includes collectors, minor arterials, principal arterials, and highways. So I'll zoom out just a little bit so you can take a look at all of these. And if there's any questions before I move on to the technical, feel free to unmute and ask. But it is relatively similar to the transit side as well. All right, if not, I will move on to the technical side. So for capacity projects, it needs to be identified through the congestion management process and or meets volume thresholds for additional lanes and project improves V over C over no build, or the project increases network connectivity. So here we have the daily thresholds for collector and arterial roads. So when we look at this, we'll be looking at it through our travel demand model and through the Viz tool to basically see what different scenarios do with certain projects and certain systems to look at, you know, that average that daily threshold to make sure that, you know, if it's meeting that threshold, if it's above or it's below, depending, that will change if it's going to be an operational project or if there is a warrant for a widening. Then for operational projects, the project is defined as an operational project in the 2023 RTP. Project does not meet volume thresholds for additional lane capacity or project has identified funds. Project provides an improvement such as adding turn lanes at intersections, median two-way left turn lanes, access management, or completion of a roadway, which can be like curb, gutter, shoulders, sidewalks, and bike lanes. And the project can be a safety project as well to make it into the RTP. The project is a grade separation of roadways, railways, etc. The project is defined under US RAP safety rating less than 2. Planned active transportation projects are located along the roadway project facility. Project is identified in the comprehensive safety action plan, or the project aligns with the comprehensive safety action plan. For freight projects, the project is identified on a facility that is part of the Utah Highway Freight Network. The project addresses project need identified in the last UDOT statewide freight plan, which was updated in 2023. Project addresses an area with high commercial vehicle activity and found to intersect or was within Wasatch Choice Industrial or Retail Center.
Hi, this is Jared.
Yes, go ahead, Jared.
Oh, yes. Let's see, I did look at.
All right, we'll continue with the corridor preservation. So for corridor preservation, efforts are underway to preserve the project's corridor or right-of-way is needed, or right-of-way is needed. And then for connectivity, project increases network connectivity or the project was identified through a Reconnecting Communities project. And that's just to ensure that items like that, if it's a Reconnecting Communities project, can make it into the RTP. So it allows that. So if there's any questions, I'll zoom out a little bit in there. If there's any questions on the technical screening criteria, yeah, please let me know. If not, then I can hand it over to Julie or Jory.
Yeah, so I mean, the board will be available if you want to spend more time in it later. We'll send it back out with our follow-up email as well. So feel free to continue to leave comments. And if you're leaving a comment that is not the comment, but just one of the boxes, if you would let us know who it is. So if we have any questions, we can do appropriate follow-up.
I would add also that at the end of this process, we're going to do a like a check across modes for compatibility or other issues when we get to kind of refining the preferred scenario a little bit more. And just to kind of reiterate what Julie said at the, you know, and what Tim mentioned during his presentation, we're going through all the comments given on the workshop maps and trying to piece those together. And we'll definitely be doing some follow-up with each of the communities if we have questions on the projects.
Julie, I had kind of a general question about the boards. I was wondering, is this something you plan to run existing projects that are on the RTP through, or would it just be for new projects that are being weighed for inclusion or not?
Yeah, we always do a review of the projects that are currently on the plan as well. Because you're going to be changing the land use, and growth has happened over the past few years as well. So unless there was a major change, that project is likely to also be on this RTP as well. But yeah.
I do think whatever final like selection criteria are decided upon, it would be awesome to have a forward-facing, almost like packet that could be given to communities, so that as they're looking at a project to submit, they could kind of check off like, oh, it meets all these criteria, but we don't yet have landowner buy-in, and so we need to go work on that. I think that would help like at least me as I'm looking to get projects added, know sort of like what my worksheet is to get there, if that's possible.
Yeah, we can totally compile these into a city packet, as you put it, and share that out. It's a great idea. Thanks, Samantha.
Great. Are there any other questions for the long range planning team about this exciting regional transportation plan update effort?
I did see one comment on the concept board from Salt Lake County or Salt Lake City Transportation Group. I'm guessing that's Joe or Becca, about using travel time, looking between driving and transit. So that's something that we can try to figure out. With a lot of these, they're reviewed in a little bit of a silo, because it's really hard to compare a transit project to a road to an active transportation if you're looking at a corridor. But it's something that's on our radar, as we look for projects and what's needed. And we'll definitely, if you have specific ideas or thoughts, one I know that came up recently is Foothill Boulevard, revisiting that, and possibly restudying it to figure out what transit works on there. How's that, fit with the roadway configuration, what active transportation needs are along that corridor. And it's limited, right, with less than 100 feet. So trying to pack everything in can be difficult. So, if you have thoughts beyond travel time, let us know too, Salt Lake City.
Thanks, Jory. We'll be all up in your emails. We just hear, from a lot of folks that they'd be happy to take transit, but it takes twice or three times as long, and it's pretty hard to, not try and. It's a very reasonable argument for not riding it.
Totally agree. I got a text message from somebody the other day who was trying to get up to Falcon Hill by Hill Air Force Base, and I think the Google Transit said like 3 hours to get there by a transit or 30 minutes by driving, right? And so there's some places it's almost near impossible to get to. But yeah, something definitely for us to consider. Becca?
And similarly, I think travel time and the question of arterial congestion in cities, I've never lived in a city before where it is faster to go 2 miles by driving during rush hour than it is to ride my bike. And I've lived in some pretty small towns, so without much traffic congestion by national standards. So for shorter trips, it should be faster to bike, especially during rush hour, than it is to drive. And the fact that that is not the case in the Salt Lake region says something about that we may be alleviating congestion when there's not really congestion. So I think to have some type of lens that is asking the question of, Can this congestion that you're concerned about on an arterial be alleviated by transit or biking rather than adding more motor vehicle capacity? Some type of screening that does go across modes. And there needs to be some balance, like it's reasonable for a 10-mile trip to take less time driving than biking, even at rush hour. But where is that swing point? And to me, it's probably somewhere around 2 or 3 miles, should absolutely be faster to bike. And for long distance trips, like you're referring to the 30 minutes and 3 hours, maybe taking transit should be, I don't know, maybe if it took an hour by transit and 30 minutes by driving, that would be more like you could decide that you're going to take transit because, you can do other stuff while you're on transit. You're not just like staring at the road. Unless of course you have a Tesla. So I don't know. Just to think about where those reasonable decisions are for people, communities and countries that have more balanced mode share have it because it is faster and more convenient for the modes that people choose to take.
Thanks, Becca.
All right, thanks everybody. We're gonna go ahead and look to wrap up our meeting, get everyone out of here on time. I'm sure that, again, the links to both the ArcGIS Online land use review and the RTP concept boards will be shared so that you can engage further with them. In our last couple moments here, I did want to check if anybody would be willing to give a community highlight at our February 2025 meeting. As you saw from Francis today, this is just a kind of snapshot overview of projects going on in your community that may have regional significance. So would anybody like to volunteer?
Samantha, we could narrow it down a little bit in the fact that we've had Sandy, Salt Lake City, Draper, Kearns, West Valley City,
Yeah,
Jordan in the past, yourself, Conwood Heights. So, I mean, it's starting to narrow it down because there's only like less than 20 in the Salt Lake County area.
All
I
right.
saw that
You called
David
out.
unmuted.
What was that, Michael?
Harriman will do it.
And then it looks
called
like
us out.
it looks like David also unmuted. David, maybe we could put Murray down for the April update, if that would be
sounds
okay.
good. Yep.
I appreciate the slight voluntold effort. I wish all of you very happy holidays, and we'll see you in the new year for our February 2025 meeting. And thanks for joining today. We're going to go ahead and adjourn.
Thanks, Samantha.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
You all.